Hello, it's the rock ball, the header, and the odd banger back on this YouTube business type thing in a bid to entertain the probable 17 people who will end up watching this video. That's my guess, 17. Anyway, before we begin, can I just say how much I'm missing Steve and his All the World's a Stage channel. I'm sure I'm not alone in wishing him nothing but positive vibes and hope that he comes back soon. Love you, Steve, mate, and thinking of you, okay? Anyway, when the clock ticked midnight on 1st of January 1980, I was 15 years old, and due to turn 16 just a few weeks later, and I was finding my feet musically, feeling my way through, that murky world of rock music. I'd just seen my first ever live concert in the form of Queen at the NEC in Birmingham in November '79, and was eagerly awaiting my second live experience, Uriah Heep, much closer to home at the more grandly named but much smaller Branwyn Hall in Swansea. Now, I started collecting some records and was really getting into the heavier side of things as the newly born new wave of British heavy metal in its infancy. And I just missed out on punk, being a little bit too young, but a newer and equally exciting musical movement was just around the corner, ready to burst into my eardrums. Yes, those opening weeks, months and years of the 1980s would deliver unto us the aforementioned new wave of British heavy metal with bands like Iron Maiden, Saxon, Diamond Head and the like bursting onto the scene. And this, I figured, was the music for my generation, something that could belong to us, and I started investigating as many bands as I possibly could. Now, I'd already got into Queen in a really big way, and although they had their heavier side, particularly live, metal they most certainly were not. Now, I'd also got hold of a couple of Judas Priest releases in the shape of Killing Machine and Unleashed in the East, and had seen and been greatly influenced by their performance of Take on the World on Top of the Pops. But to sate my appetite for more new music, I searched out some compilation albums, records that would give me, a taste for a new band without having to invest heavily, if you pardon the pun, into their back catalogue, if indeed they had one. And so it is that I present to you the 3 records I bought in 1980. Oh, God. Metal for Mothers, Volumes 1 and 2. I'll bang the microphone. Along with Kilowatts, an obvious play on the term kilowatts, and sporting a huge stack of speakers on the cover. The 2 Mothers albums were very much showcasing that new post-punk era, and heavily punk-inspired in some cases, new wave of British heavy metal. No album, that'll do. Volume 1 contained 2 tracks from Iron Maiden, one each from their eponymous debut, and one from Killers in the shape of Sanctuary and Wrathchild, respectively, with Paul Di'Anno sounding absolutely superb. Strangely, the track Wrathchild, though, and the album Killers would not be released for another year or so, a great coup for the compilation album there. Iron Maiden, I wonder what happened to them. Now, other well-known bands gracing the album were Samson with DIANNO'S soon-to-be replacement at Maiden, Bruce Dickinson on vocals, the proggy Praying Mantis, who I saw supporting Maiden in the summer of 1980, again at the Branwyn Hall, and who later featured Bernie Shaw of Uriah Heep fame on vocals, and Angel Witch with a heavily Sabbath-inspired track, Baphomet. Now, some acts were short-lived, and bands like Sledgehammer, the EF Band, and Nuts, sadly no longer around. The Sledgehammer track, though, in particular, needs a really good listening. It's a real rocker of a track. Then there were 2 strangely named bands in the form of Ethel the Frog and Toad the Wet Sprocket, who found fame on the Rock Note sketch on Monty Python's Contractual Obligation album. I wonder what came first, the sketch or the band? Who knows, eh? Volume 2 continued in much the same vein, showcasing new up-and-coming bands, along with others who'd been plying their trade for a few years at the time with perhaps, little or no success. Now, Trespass were the band that got 2 tracks on this record. The label may be thinking they were going to make it big, and frankly, they should have. Their track, One of These Days, an absolute classic, was one that the band I was in later that decade would play live. They were the band with no name. We didn't have a name. Bizarre. They're still recording to this day, releasing their latest album, Wolf at the Door, only last year. Now, some of the more obscure bands sporting traditional or cliched names like Zero, with an X, not a Z, Horsepower, Red Alert, The Raid, and Chevy, now sadly long gone. And the album sported some early prog metal as well, with tracks from the recently reformed, I believe, White Spirit, and the Heap-influenced, minus the Hammond organ, Dark Star featuring on it. And finally, there was even a Kiss sound alike in the form of the track Telephone Man by Easy Money, with a Z, of course. It is metal after all. Both albums are really well worth searching out, either physically or online. I know they are on YouTube. And there are some really stunning tracks from some great bands on there, most of which we'll never even have heard of, I can almost guarantee. Now, they both again reveal the punk influences on early Nuobum, and while production quality varies from top-notch to more demo-like really, the album still give a great feel of the scene back in the early 1980s. I must thank the website Encyclopedia Metallum, who I found invaluable researching whether some of these bands are still active or not, and I'll pop a link down below. Kilowatts was a very much different beast indeed, featuring some well-known and some lesser-known, predominantly American acts at the time, but I still found it a valuable resource in discovering bands that were new to me, particularly those, as I said, from across the pond in America. It was a double album release, but not in a gatefold sleeve. A pet hater, mind that. Come on. Gatefolds, please. Anyway, it opens with 2 tracks from Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush, who I saw live at the Heavy Metal Holocaust in the summer of 1981. The album then continues with cuts from well-known acts like Ted Nugent, The Mighty Judas Priest, Blue Oyster Cult, Journey, Aerosmith, Molly Hatchet, acts like that, alongside lesser-known acts like Ray Gomez, Trooper, and The Boys, with a double Z in instead of an S, of course. This is metal after all. And Shakin' Street. There's even a track from a band called REO Speedwagon on there for some strange reason. Now, the inner sleeves contain helpful notes about each band, a must in those pre-internet and information at your fingertips world. And at that age, knowledge was very much power, and if you could regale your friends in school with facts about unknown bands, then you won, hadn't you? If you want an in-depth review of this album, then I'll link to a channel called Johnny Ceed, either above or below somewhere. And again, it's well worth seeking out to hear some of the lesser well-known acts on it. Right, that's it for me for this week. I've started work on my 3, 4, 5, 6 series of album releases from various bands, and first up in a week, or probably 2, we'll be looking at Judas Priest and their 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th releases in the shape of Sin After Sin, Stained Class, Killing Machine and British Steel. I bet you can't wait, can you? Don't answer that actually. Alright, until then, be nice to each other, okay? Ta-ra.